We are gold and blue, born in 1872. The greatest team in the world, we are known. As we follow on, we are the people through and through, the gold and blue since.
Evening all. Hope we're all enjoying our weekend. My name is Chris. Welcome to Bold and Blue 1872, the Rangers podcast. Our Rangers podcast, I should say. Thank you very much for tuning in. And I'm going to struggle with this one. I need to be honest with you. I am conflicted as hell today, or tonight, I should say. We've just observed Rangers beating Livi in Livingston, at Livingston, on the plastic pitch. And dare I say it was a game of two halves? Is that being overly critical? Is that being overly is that exaggerating the Rangers' performance? I'm not sure. But let's get into it. The game, I just want to touch on this because I find it quite fascinating, and you'll probably find me covering these pre- and post-match pressers with Martin because there's so much to take from them, in my opinion, even though they're becoming quite painful to listen to. He did make a comment in the pre-match presser that Chermiti was brilliant on Thursday night, and I just, I kind of cringed. And it kind of set the tone again for how I'm feeling about Martin. Didn't really tune into the rest of the pre-match presser as much as I should have after I heard that, which I think is the sentiment of most fans at the moment. We're hearing certain things from Martin very early on in press conferences, and you kind of zone out after it, and that's kind of what I did there. But we move forward to the lineups, so they get announced, and I'm pretty happy with the lineup that's being presented. I'm very happy that Moore is not starting. I think I've been quite vocal about my feelings on whether or not he should be playing at the moment. He does come on later on in the game, but he doesn't start the match. So he's been dropped. We have Miovski coming back in for Chermiti, which I think is again a consequence of Miovski apparently picking up a knock a couple of nights ago, where he probably would have started anyway, but he's back in from the start. And then we have Barron coming in for Dio, which I was delighted to see, absolutely delighted. I didn't know if it was going to be, I had a toss-up between whether it would be Dio or Rothwell, but I was confident I had a toss-up whether it would be Barron or Rothwell, but I was confident that it wouldn't be Dio starting today because his actions on Thursday night were reckless, and he doesn't deserve to be starting based on merit, in my opinion, anyway. So I think that if you look at what Barron's offered from the little that we've seen him this season, he's been far more effective than Dio has. Rothwell, massive jury out on him, but he did look very bright when he did come on for a very short period a couple of games ago and got taken off injured. So I would have been happy either way if it would have been Rothwell or Barron, but I was probably happier that it was Barron that was starting. So it looks as if we're starting with a kind of 4-2-3-1 if you want. So we've got Tav on the right, Magoma on the left, and then we've got Cornelius and Soapy, Butland and goals, obviously. It looks as if we've set up and how the game plays out. We've got Barron sitting as a 6, Raskin sitting as a second 6, but he's kind of drifting box to box. We've got Asgard playing in front of those guys, almost like an 8-10. We've got Gassama on the left and Ant-Man on the right, and then Miovski up front. So in my opinion, that was probably about as the best starting lineup that we could have started with today. So quite happy from the outset. But coming into the game, I'm still not optimistic, right? Because I've seen how we've been playing, and so has everyone else. And you know, I believe I'd heard something that Livi were like 3-1 to win. Which, when has Livi ever been 3-1 or 4-1? Even it might have been to win against us. That's ridiculous odds for Livi to beat Rangers. But regardless, the game kicks off, and for the first kind of 10 minutes, it's very concerning. Livi are pressing us really hard. They have a really high line, and they are, they are not dominating, but they're certainly posing us a lot of problems. And I'm getting the fear very quickly that this is going to be a really bad result at the end of the day for us. But it gets a lot better. I think that that this is the first time that I've seen. I think I'm kind of torn between whether this was us or them when it comes to. I've said a number of times now that I believe that any manager worth their salt should be able to set up against us, because, and it's been stated by a few managers that have come to Ibrox at this point, mainly the European opposition that we faced, where they have mentioned that they knew where the space would be to play against us. So I think that most managers worth their salt should see what me as a average fan can see, that if you kind of sit back and you wait for those opportunities to exploit those spaces, then you will get a lot of rewards against us. And Livi were not doing that. I was astounded, to be quite frank. Not surprised. Astounded, surprised, probably the wrong words, but I know what Martindale's like. He has an approach, and it's admirable. But I've also seen Martindale be very effective with his low block. Livingston have never done well against us when Martindale's been their manager, and in fact, on a couple of occasions, Martindale's just kind of laughed it off in post-match press conferences as a kind of given, that Rangers beat Livingston. But I don't know. I kind of expected more from Martindale today. The way that he set his team up is to kind of press high line, almost not identical to Rangers in terms of the style, but in terms of the kind of the press and the forward lines and the back lines. I was astounded that he approached the game from that, and we kind of quickly worked that out in the first kind of 10 minutes. And from about the 10 to 15 minute on to the end of the half, we absolutely dominated that game. And that what I mentioned a moment ago about I'm kind of conflicted about whether or not it was us or them. Livi are a team that's just come up from the championship in Scotland. So should it matter? Should it really matter? Should we have to rely on them allowing us to play? No, I don't think that should be the case. I don't think it should be the case at all. So, but nonetheless, they did allow us to play. So they were pressing high. We were finding those gaps, and it wasn't, in my opinion, it wasn't Martin ball. We were after about 10 minutes, we started seeing those gaps, seeing those spaces, and we started being very direct, and we were penetrating those gaps. We were utilising our wingers, predominantly Gassama. I don't think Ant-Man was that effective until we talk about the goal in a moment. But this to me did not look like it was a Martin team. After about 10, 15 minutes, it looked like the team maybe had taken it upon themselves to establish that there was obvious gaps that they could exploit, and they were doing that, and they were doing it very effectively. in the first half, we probably dominated about 30 minutes of that first half, and we should have been 2 or 3 goals up, but we weren't. We end up being 1 goal up. Tavernier. The ball comes in over the left. It's kind of knocked about a little bit. Ant-Man's on the right byline. He kind of on the volley knocks it back over into the right in front of the goal, and Tavernier's right there. And credit where it's due, Tavernier volleys that in the back of the net with pinpoint accuracy, and it's unstoppable, and it's 1-0 to Rangers. And at that point, I'm like, is this? I'm kind of torn. I'm like, I know that this is Livi. I'm looking at it and I'm saying Livi should really be setting themselves up differently here, and I wasn't expecting this much space from them. I wasn't expecting them to play this way. I was expecting a much more rigid defense, a much more rigid back line. Not necessarily a low block, but at times Livi we were attacking Livi, and half of their team was in our half, and I wasn't expecting that. So if you're going to allow this Rangers team under Martin's coaching that kind of space, then I think that you give us an opportunity to look good. So I'm kind of torn. I'm like, yes, Tav scored, great, love it, lovely goal. I am not a fan of Tav, haven't been for a while, but I'll give him his credit where it's due. I think he was all over the place, and he played great today. But in that goal, he took it very well. So we continue on, and then Tavernier also, we get an opportunity, a penalty. It's a corner coming in. Raskin's probably heading towards the ball that's coming in from the corner. Is there a clear opportunity there? Who knows? It looks as if the ball's probably going to drop around a bit where Raskin is. The Livi defender's got a tug on the back of his shirt. We all know you can't grab somebody by the shirt anymore. All too often we see them not given as a penalty, even though they've got a grip of their shirt. But this one was so obvious. Raskin, being the professional that he is, he goes down, feeling the tug off the shirt. It gets viewed by VAR, and the penalty's given. So then I'm like, yeah, right. I mean, this might not be as bad as I was expecting today. Maybe we'll get something. Tavernier steps up and smacks it to the right hand of the goalkeeper, as he typically does, and the Livi goalkeeper saves it. And for all the plaudits that Tav gets for taking penalties, I'd read earlier on a stat that's now he's about 7 out of 9 for every penalties that he takes. So I don't know, what is that? Almost kind of 1 in 5. Almost kind of 3 in 5, between 3 and 4 and 5. Is that good enough? I don't know. I've not done the research on that. I've heard some people saying that maybe that's not what we should be expecting from our penalty taker. But nonetheless, Tav would he'd credit in the bank from that goal that he scored earlier on. So we move on. The first half is just, it's pretty much all us. But I'm trying to be careful that I don't ever take away from Martin ball, or however it is that Martin set us up. But it didn't look like this was Martin ball in the first half, and maybe that's because Martin ball depends on teams setting themselves up the way that Livi did. But most teams in Scotland don't do that, so I'm kind of torn between how effective Martin ball typically is. I keep using the expression Martin ball. It's the only way I can describe it, because I could call it shite ball if you want as well, but I'm not going to go there right now. But if anyone's waiting for me to tear into Martin, by the way, just stick around for a bit longer, because I'm getting there. But yeah, the first half is all us. We should have been maybe 2 or 3 up in the first half. There wasn't really much coming from Livi at all. They probably had one opportunity in the first half that, Butland made a couple of good saves in the whole game, but the first half there wasn't really much coming from them after the kind of first 10, 15 minutes. So we go into the second half, and I don't know. Is it just? I don't feel that Livi came back out any different than they were in the first half. They seem to still be pressing high. They still had that high back line. I didn't notice anything different from them, but from us, I mean, it feels like they went in at half time, and I mean, I'm just speculating here, but they came back out in the second half a total different team. There was no more exploiting the gaps that were there, that were very evident in the first half, that were still there in the second half. We almost kind of resorted back to the way we started at the first half, where it was kind of pass left to right, left to right, left to right, too much passing around the back. And I don't know. I mean, what happened? What was the halftime team talk? I mean, I'm only speculating here, but is Martin, if they went in at halftime and Martin's giving them I'm sure he's not giving them a bollocking for what they did in the first half, because it's of his own admission, and we'll get to that in a moment after the game. It was probably the best football that we've seen against Livi, by the way. Let's just caveat that, right? But I don't know what happens. We come back out in the second half and we're just passing the ball side to side all over the place. And eventually, I'd noticed earlier on in the game. I didn't actually know this until I'd seen him on the Livi team sheet. I didn't know that Silla was playing for Livi. And the first thing I recognised when I seen Silla's name was Silla always plays out his skin whenever he's played against us. Always. It's a given. I'm not saying Silla's a world beater or far from that, but every time he plays against Rangers, he always seems to up his game about 5 or 6 levels. And lo and behold, Silla pops up. Just I don't know what it is with this team. Like, we've got some big boys in this team and some big lads, and we just cannot seem to defend high balls. We're terrible in there when it comes to those balls coming in and other teams attacking our box. So yeah, it comes in big Soapy, in my opinion, should have done a lot better, but Silla gets the noggin on it and just smashes it in the back net. So it's 1-1. And this is where it gets pretty desperate, in my opinion. We've seen this a couple of times now from Martin, where we're playing lesser teams. With all due respect to them, we're playing a lot lesser teams, and we're looking for a goal because we're either getting beat or we're drawing. Couple of times already this season, it's because we've been getting beat. So what we're talking about, like Dundee United, for example, and Martin, for me, he shows significant tactical illiteracy when all you do is just when you need a goal is you don't have any faith in your philosophy that you claim to have, and all you do is just throw on as many attackers as possible. So, I took a note of this earlier on, so I'm just going to go through it, right? So, look at this. Like, Aarons comes on, right, because Cornelius gets injured. Prior to that, he was going to bring on Moore earlier. But anyway, Cornelius gets injured. So Aarons comes on at the 73rd minute. Joe Rothwell comes on at the 73rd minute. Barami comes on at the 82nd minute. Mikey Moore comes on at the 82nd minute. Chermani comes on at the 73rd minute. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 attacking players that come on within the last 17 minutes of the game. There's no tactical nous there whatsoever. That's just fuck it. Throw as many attackers on the pitch as we can and try and get a goal. If that's going to be your approach, Martin, why don't you just do that from the start? Maybe we'll have a better chance. But it's a few times this season, and the fact that we're doing it against Livi have just come up from the Championship. Let's get real here, right? I mean, Livi, I seen the stats earlier, and I don't have them in front of me, but in our last 9 or 10 games against Livi, we've scored about 27 goals. They've scored about 3 goals against us. They've not beaten us once in all those 10 games. I don't know how many times they've drawn with us either, but this, for me, I recall Martindale 2 seasons ago basically coming out in press conferences after and, kind of laughing off the fact that we've beat them because it was almost a given. Like he kind of admitted defeat before the games even started. Even I love Martindale. He's for what he's achieved with some of the smaller teams that he's managed, and he's great. He's great banter, right? Good crack, if you want to call it that, from where I'm over here. He's a Rangers man through and through, but he's I don't know how best to describe it, but he's got one way of approaching the game, and if he's very open to the fact that if he doesn't have the players to play the way that he wants to, then he accepts the inevitable, and that probably should have been the case today, but it wasn't. I mean, Martindale probably came away from that game today kind of disgruntled that he'd lost it, or at least feeling bad for the team that he'd lost it. I don't know what's the best way to describe it. I'm not sure. I think I'm more trying to amplify the fact that Livingston are a team that we should really be beaten with relative ease. I mean, I know we're playing in Livi, we're away. I know there's a lot of pressure on the team right now. I know we're playing on the plastic pitch, and I'll talk about that in a bit more detail in a moment when we get to Martin's post-match conference. But we should really be beating teams like this, and this was a hard game for us today. A very hard game. The first half was we should have been out of sight, and again we exploited the way that Livi were playing. Second half, we just abandoned everything that we seemed to have learned from the first half, and just went back to the what we've been accustomed to with Martin, and just passing the ball left to right. And when you do that, you inevitably will lose the ball, and that's what happened. We were getting caught out, and we were losing the ball, and eventually they scored, and it just made the last kind of 20 minutes just really, really painful to watch, because we were just throwing shit at a wall and hoping it sticked, and throwing every attacker that we had available on the park. Yeah, I mean, we won the game today, but it just felt like a loss. It felt... It's just hard to describe, isn't it? Because you're watching your team win. You're scoring in the 94th minute. There's a few more minutes after that. I think we had about 8 minutes of injury time. You're scoring in the 94th minute. Aarons pops up, puts the ball in the back of the net, and he does quite well with the goal. He's not had a very good start to his career with Rangers, and I know he's on loan, and it looks as if it's been a bit of a duffer loan signing for a boy that's probably being paid quite a lot of money to be here as well. But he pops up and he sticks the ball in the back, and then it was scrambling all over the box, and he pops up and sticks it in there in the 94th minute. and you can see that the bench, the crowd, not the crowd, sorry, the bench, the players, even the substitutes are running on the park. There's a togetherness with the group of players, it seems, and almost instantaneously you hear the fans shouting, "Martin, Martin, get to," you know. And it reflects how tough it is to sit here and speak about this win tonight, because I feel the same. I was watching the game. I was celebrating when we won, and then, but in the same chain of thought, I'm still thinking this is ridiculous that it took us until the 94th minute to get this winner. And then you compound all the other games before this and where we are right now, and the way that Martin speaks and all the pressers and all this kind of stuff, and I'm just sitting there kind of, you know, I never want Rangers to lose a game. I always want us to win, but I'm not getting the same feeling out of a win right now, and that's you could see that in the stadium, that's how the fans were reacting as well. I will give a shout out that there was, you could tell, so you could hear the Martin get to chants, right? And then you could hear a certain portion of the same fans, our fans, singing other songs, more pro Rangers songs, not anti Martin songs, if you want. So you can see the dilemma that there's some fans that are just done, and they were probably just pissed off watching that game today, because we shouldn't be waiting till the 94th minute scrambling to get a win against Livi. And then there's other fans that are just rejoicing in the fact that we've scored a 94th minute winner, probably 94th minute, because we had a few more minutes left. There was nothing much that came from the last few minutes. So, end of the day, we walk away from Livi with a 2-1 win, and we close the gap on Celtic to 7 points. Hearts top of the league, 9 points clear still. But yeah, what do you say about it? I kind of share the sentiment that Elvis from the WhatsApp chat, shout out Elvis, good lad. He'd said earlier on, you know, we've closed the gap on Celtic. We've took advantage of them drawing with Hibs, and he's right, you know, and I feel that way as well. I don't want to lose sight of the fact that we're still challenging for a league, but I don't want Martin to be at this club anymore. And I know that this win today prolongs the inevitable, but I still want, when that inevitable happens, when a manager comes in, a new manager, I still want that manager to have a fighting chance of catching Celtic or Hearts, whoever it might be, you know. So I'm kind of torn. I certainly don't want us to lose games, and I do understand where some fans are coming from when they're saying today that they're gutted that we won. As crazy as that sounds, but I do understand. I understand it, because they don't want to prolong the inevitable. But for me, the inevitable will happen. I still want us to be in touching distance of them, and that's more important than Martin losing his job to me. So just it's weird, isn't it? You know, you win a game and you it's just such a weird feeling. So we get to the post match conference with Martin after that, obviously, and he's in good spirits. He's questioned about the second half performance, you know, and he does the inevitable, pissing me off anyway. He starts talking about a sticky pitch. I don't know. Like I'm not keen on managers making excuses for these artificial pitches. They're supposed to do their due diligence on this, and and be prepared for it. So if there's a sticky pitch, then why are you still trying to pass it along the ground? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is there. I'm not a coach myself, but should you not be prepared for that? But he also makes a statement that he says this is the best we've played all season. Or the first half he says is the best we've played all season. And that kind of winds me up a bit because, like I said earlier on, I feel I'm kind of torn. I kind of agree with him. Maybe the Pilsen game, we were better, but I think Pilsen and Livingston have both been culpable of the same thing. They've allowed us to play. I keep saying any manager right now worth their salt would look at the way we are set up, and they should be able to set up their team, just play a hard block at the back, be a bit more flexible in the midfield, and just wait for those spaces, those through balls over the top. Any manager worth their salt must be able to see that that's an opportunity against us. Pilsen did not do it. They were playing kind of high line direct football, and we exploited it. Livi in the first half today did the exact same thing. They were still doing it in the second half today, but for some reason we never exploited it. So I don't know what happened there. But Martin says that that's the best he's seen us play all season. Martin, it's Livi, and with all due respect to Livi, it's Livi. They've just come up from the Championship, and this is you taking the opportunity to point out that this is the best we've played all season. It better be the best we've played all season, because that's probably one of the worst teams we should, on paper, be playing all season. With all due respect again to Livi and certainly to Martindale, I mean that we should be playing well against them. But based on the second half, even the first 5-10 minutes of the first half, based on the second half, for him to say that's the best we've played all season, yeah, I mean, if that's what you're clinging on to, then great. But I don't know. It was weird as well. He came out of the press conference and he said something kind of to his left, and he made a kind of snigger where someone said something to him about the second half, and he said something to his left with a kind of snigger, a smirk on his face, and until we conceded. I'd be happy. I don't know who from the fan press or the media was there, but it'd be nice to hear exactly what that was said between whoever was on his left. But it seemed like it was kind of cracking jokes about the result, which I wasn't overly enamored with. Again, I've said this before. Like the way that he comes across in these pressers just kind of winds me up a bit, but yeah, he's asked again about the fan response. He's asked about how the fans are chanting at him. I don't know if anyone noticed this, but Martin kind of, after the full whistle, there was obviously an applause from the fans, but then kind of Martin, it looked as if he was coming out onto the pitch. And then you could hear very strong, very loudly chants, Martin, get to. And then he just went straight down the tunnel. And if you noticed this, if you were watching, there was people patting him on the back, and I think there was people saying, "Are you okay?" And he was kind of nodding. He says, "It's fine." And he just went straight down the tunnel. Now in the presser, he said that he chose to go straight down the tunnel to detract the fan chants from him. That didn't look like what happened in real time to me whatsoever. He looked like he was coming onto the pitch, and then he quickly reversed when he heard what the fans were still chanting, because ultimately at the end of the day, the fans were waiting till the 94th minute to get a winner against Livi, and based on everything else that we've seen, I didn't expect the fans to be anything else other than what they were today, which was still unimpressed with Martin and still wanting Martin to remove himself from that position, or the club to remove him from that position. So, yeah, stop gaslighting us, Martin. I mean, if you think that I'm not watching this game, and other fans are not watching this game on TV, at the game, whatever it might be, and we're not recognising these things, and then you come out in the press and say something that is kind of contrary to what we're seeing, you're just going to wind people up, and again, you're just not going to endear yourself to the fans any more than you are. It's bad enough that results and performances are what they are, but when you continue to do that, you just wind people up, and people will stop listening to you. The majority of fans that I'm talking to now, they won't even listen to your pressers, and they'll maybe go a couple of minutes in, they'll hear you say one or two things that just winds them up, and they'll just switch out. The majority won't even listen to your pressers now. So I think that maybe it's, again, I've mentioned this before, immaturity as a manager. It shouldn't be inexperience, but immaturity maybe. He's not even 40 years old yet as a manager, so maybe he's got a lot to learn, but maybe it is just his sheer arrogance and pig-headedness that's and maybe somewhat deluded. I don't know. I don't want to. I'm not going to sit here and bash him over it. I mean, it's kind of obvious that there's a problem the way that he's coming across to the fans, but doesn't seem to be endearing himself whatsoever whenever he gets the opportunity. So. But yeah, listen, we've clawed back a couple of points on Celtic. They've lost again. Sorry, they've drew against Hibs, which kind of makes our win against Hibs in the cup a bit more impressive, if you want. I still believe Hibs should have been a few goals up in the first half, or maybe not a few goals up, but they definitely had the opportunity to score 2 or 3 goals in the first half against us that they didn't take, and that result could have been very different if that transpired. But ultimately, we've won 2 domestic games on a trot. We've beat Hibs, we've beat Livi, and we move on to Graz next week. Listen, he wins games, he keeps winning. Eventually, it will turn around. But based on today, this was a very, with all due respect, much lower caliber of opponent that we will face for the rest of the season, and they let us play for most parts today. And any team that doesn't let us play the way that I mentioned earlier on, that what I've called out, I foresee us having a lot of challenges against those teams, and some of them will be better teams than, well, most of them will be better teams than Livi, and I expect them to exploit that. So is this maybe like a law of averages today? Are we eventually going to win some games against some of the lower opposition, and even some of the more challenging opposition? Just, again, law of averages, luck, and how different teams play against us. We'll pick up a win here, we'll pick up a draw, we'll pick up a loss, we'll pick up a couple of draws, maybe a win. It's the kind of I'm expecting that the way that we'll our trend in the league will probably be similar to a mid-tier table team. You know, maybe like a McInnes, Kilmarnock, where you get a win, you get a draw, you get a loss, you get a draw, you get a win, you get a loss, a couple of draws. Or maybe this is the catalyst for us kicking on. Maybe the first half, maybe I'm not giving Martin and the team enough credit. Maybe the first half was more them than it was Livi, but I feel it was more Livi letting us play. So time will tell on that front. I'm delighted we've got a win. I'm delighted we've closed the gap on Celtic. We haven't closed the gap on Hearts. Will Hearts be there at the end of the season? It's a long season, and teams like Hearts, Aberdeen in the past, they don't tend to have the longevity to see out a full season in those top tier positions. But maybe this season will be different. But as it stands right now, we've closed the gap on Celtic, which is always a good thing, and we've taken advantage of them having a draw this weekend. But yeah, we've moved up a few positions in the table. A couple of wins, and we'll be probably up in the top 3 or 4. So yeah, on to the Graz game, where I'm pretty sure we'll get spanked. So that's the kind of, that's where we're at, isn't it? You know, we've got a win today, and we'll take the positives for it. There doesn't seem to be a lot of there doesn't seem to be anyone that's changed their opinion on Martin based on today. And we move on to the next one. Maybe we get 7 or 8 wins, maybe some draws in Europe, and maybe, just maybe, some people's opinions might start to change on Martin. But as of right now, there doesn't seem to be a lot changing. So we'll move on to the next game and we'll see what happens. But yeah. I'll be back on probably Thursday, Friday, just to cover the Graz game, unless there's any kind of news in between. But until then, thank you very much for tuning in. I appreciate it. Thank you. There's been so many subscribers. I'm just a little bald Scottish guy sitting here. I know a lot of my friends from my chats and stuff have been sharing my videos, and some people are just subscribing just for the sake of it. and that's cool as well. Thank you for that. But you know, if you're tuning in and you're enjoying what I'm saying, even though it's not very positive at the moment, there should be better days around the corner, hopefully. And I hope to get there eventually with you guys. And yeah. Thank you very much for tuning in. Like and subscribe if you can. I do really appreciate the support. Until next time, this is Chris, Bold and Blue, 1872, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
We are gold and blue, born in 1872, the greatest team in the world. We are known as we follow on. We are the people through and through, the gold and blue since 1872. With our hearts on fire, we rise to the call. Through the highs and lows, we'll never fall. Glasgow Rangers standing proud and true. Together we sing for the bold and